It's been a while now since this news would have broken, but for me it still seems pretty recent as I record this. The other day I heard that theologian Walter Brueggemann had passed away. I think he was in his 90s. Walter Brueggemann, I would have thought, was one of, in the Western world's contemporary greatest Old Testament theologians. An amazing theologian. I was privileged enough many years ago when I was living at the monastery. I went through to Auckland and he hosted a 3-day course in Auckland, and I managed to sit in his lectures, etc. And again, it was just amazing. Not only was he an amazing theologian, but he's actually a preacher. So as he lectures, you can't help but sort of sit under that great sort of preaching style as well. And so it was his work has I think in many senses shaped the Western theological conversation around the Old Testament for many years, and I'm just so aware of his passing and his influence over numerous ones of our lives and church. And I just therefore was reflecting that one of the first times I came across Walter Brueggemann was many years ago. As a young adult, I was at a gathering at which ironically enough was Frederick Wallace House when it existed, and I was there with a gathering of people in Lower Hutt in my would have been early 20s, maybe late teens, and another legend, Tony Campolo, North American preacher and sociologist, was out speaking, and he himself, Tony, has passed away just recently as well. And I can still remember, although it would be coming up to sort of 30, nearly 40 years, I can still remember the message he spoke in Frederick Wallace House, and that was how powerful and how reflective he was. And I remember at the end of the talk, during the talk, he mentioned, the 10 must-read books you must read in your life. And somebody asked him, so what are the 10 books you think you got to read in your life as a follower of Jesus? And he mentioned, and that's the first I'd heard about it, he mentioned Walter Brueggemann's Prophetic Imagination. And so sure enough, I read Walter Brueggemann's Prophetic Imagination, and I do think it is one of the must-read books, and it has not aged really, and it is profound in its significance. Only a very short book, a dense book, but a great book. So as I reflect upon, Walter Brueggemann's impact on the church and Tony Campolo's impact on the church as well, and both of them having passed away recently, it makes me kind of reflect upon the role of those we get to stand on the shoulders of in our lives and the legacy that they have left for us. And it makes, as I get older, it makes me reflect upon, am I living my life to leave a spiritual legacy? How am I living my life that after I'm gone there will be a fruitfulness that will go from generation to generation? And I think it's for me, the challenge is, when I think of Walter Brueggemann or Tony Campolo, it's to move the conversation for what am I living for myself, instead to what generational legacy before my God am I living for? What is my priority in this season of my life? And I just want to encourage us that wouldn't it be great if we too were those people who lived for a legacy of transformation, to live for a legacy of seeing God's kingdom come and those we loved and those around us, more than it was about living for ourselves. And I'm just really thankful for the lives of Walter Brueggemann and Tony Campolo, and that they chose to live lives of faithfulness to their God and live a life that ultimately have left a legacy. But I think probably the biggest compliment I can show to them is actually to likewise pick up my cross and be that person who lives a life not about myself, but about God's kingdom coming, not just in the present, but in the generations to come. So I just want to leave you those reflections. No doubt you yourself, none of us are in this room, none of us follow Jesus because of our great work. We always build on the work of stand on the shoulders of others who have come before us, who have inputted into our life, who have shared the good news with us, who have prayed for us. But we want to also pass that forward to the generations to come. So I ask you just to reflect on your own call as being a person of spiritual legacy. Bless you.